We begin today the Gemara right at the beginning of Daf Mem, Omar Mar. So this Gemara will be explaining a Braise from Daf Lamed Tes. So on Daf Lamed Tes, the Gemara brings a Braise that brings the source for the halacha of the Mishnah that says that when it comes to the Chatois Apnimiyos, the karbonis that the blood is sprayed inside the Beis HaMikdash, it's sprayed 7 times towards the Pereiches and 4 times on the Mizbeach HaPnimi. You have to do all the matanos in order that the kapara should take effect. If you miss only one, it's ma'akiv, it doesn't take effect. So the source of this is a pasuk in Parshas Vayikra. There are 2 parshas there, one after the other. One is, first it speaks about the korban chatos of the par kohen Mashiach. The kohen Mashiach has to bring a korban chatos. Right after that, it speaks about another korban chatos, which is called par helim dovashal tzibur. In a case where the Sanhedrin paskined in a way that was wrong and the whole Klal Yisrael followed, so you bring the par helim dovashal tzibur. Now by both of them, it says basically all the details of what has to be done with the carbon. But then there's a complete, full extra pasuk in the parsha of the par helim dovashal tzibur that it says there va'asa lapar kasha asa lapar achatas. Do for this par helim dovashal tzibur like what it said in the previous parsha regarding the par kohen Mashiach. And the pasuk goes on to say ken yaseloi v'chiper aleim hakohen v'nislach lahem. This pasuk is extra from the beginning till the end. Because as I mentioned, it already says here all the details that have to be done. Why is it saying that you should do here, like it says before, for the par kohen Mashiach? So in the Braise before, the Gemara dashened every single word of the pasuk. Regarding the point that we're speaking about here, the Gemara dashened, when it says va'asa kasher asa, it's coming to repeat a second time that you have to spray the bloods inside on the right place fully, that each one is ma'akiv. This is a repetition that shows that that this is a must to do every single one of the zrikas. And there's other details that was learned out in the Braise as well, as we'll see the Gemara will explain. Amamar, the master had said in the Braise explaining that ainly Elo matn sheva shemakvais b'chol mokim. So the point that it said in the Braise is that when we learn out va'asa kasher asa, that you should do like it said by the par kohen Mashiach, which means the point that it repeats it. That all the hazoyas of the blood inside must be done. So the Braise goes on to say, well, maybe that refers only to the blood that was sprayed towards the pereiches. Why? So the Braise says, because I find that matan sheva, blood that's sprayed 7 times, I find in other places that each one of the 7 times is ma'akiv, is a must. Maybe that should be ma'akiv. But the blood that are sprayed on the Mizbeach HaPnimi 4 times, how do I know that that's also a must? That's what the Braise asks. So the Gemara here explains, Heicha, where is the every place that we see that when you spray the blood 7 times, it's ma'akiv? Amarav Pape, B'para or B'negayim. It's regarding the para aduma, and it's regarding by the negayim. So regarding para aduma, as Rashi here brings, it says there, V'hiza al neichach pnei al mayid. The para aduma was made outside of the Beis HaMikdash, on the Har HaZeisim, but it was towards, right across of the Beis HaMikdash, and you had to spray the blood 7 times towards the Beis HaMikdash. So that 7 times there, it's all ma'akiv. Why? Because it says there the term of chukah, zeis chukah satayra, and the rule is whenever it says chukah, that's coming to say this is the law, you must do it. Similar by the negayim, there's the halacha of the oil actually. Over there it's not even blood. Over there it's oil that has to be placed 7 times, and there the Torah says zeis tia, Torah hamitzayra. The word tia, Rashi says havaya, is a term that also indicates that it's a must. So I see that the number 7 in other 2 places where it's found in Torah, it's ma'akiv. Therefore, over here as well, inside the Beis HaMikdash, when you spray the bloods of the korban chatas towards the pereicha 7 times, that's ma'akiv. But then, going on to what it says in the Braise, matan arba minayin, the other 4 that have to be placed on the inside mizbeach, how do I know that that's also ma'akiv? Talmud Loima. So the Braise goes on to say that we learn it from the continuation of the pasuk, where it says kein yaseh. So that tells me that also the 4 is ma'akiv. But the Gemara asks on this though, why do we need an extra drasha? Even if you have this svara that the Braise just said, that 7 we find in other places is ma'akiv, but 4 we don't find in other places. But what should be the difference? Ma'ishna matan zayin dichsivon okfilon, regarding the 7 that's placed that you sprayed towards the pereiches. The reason, the limud that it's ma'akiv is because the Torah writes it once and repeats it, as I mentioned before. The Torah writes the par kohen Mashiach, Then it writes par helam dovashal tzibur. It repeats and it says again this pasuk va'asa lapar kasha asa. Why is it saying do it like you did? It already says all the details. So that's a repetition. So matan dalid nami ksivan ukfilan. So regarding what it says here in the parsha, it says in the parsha both things here. It says the spraying of the blood towards the pereiches, and also what's placed on the four corners of the mizbeach. And regarding both of them, this pasuk applies that it's repeating that you should do here like you did before by the Par Kayim Mashiach. So why do we need an extra word to darshan this? So Rabbi Yirmiyah explains, the repetition here, this extra drasha that from Ken Yaseh is needed only according to Rab Shimon's opinion. As the Gemara will bring here in the Braise, that according to Rab Shimon, it doesn't actually say twice the halacha of placing the blood on the four corners of the inside mizbeach. The Tanya, we learned the machlokes about this. So again, here this Braise speaks about the two parshas in Parshas Vayikra that we're speaking about. One is the parsha of Par Kayim Mashiach, and the one right afterwards, the Par Helam Dovashal Tzibur. So the Braise says, Lamaila, in the first parsha of Par Kayim Mashiach, the pasuk says, well, it could have said the term Keren, which is one corner, but it says Kar Nois. So if it says a plural term, so you should spray the blood and the karnes of the Mizbeach HaKteires, so that means Shtayim. So you see two corners of the inside Mizbeach. Then Lamato, in the next parsha, which is Par Helam Dovashal Tzibur. There it could have said Kerem, which would be one corner, but it says Karnes, which means two corners. So Arba. So if I combine the Karnes that it says in this parsha and the Karnes that it says in the next parsha, the two together teach that it has to be on all four corners. Divrei Rab Shimon. This is what Rab Shimon says. So what do you see here according to Rab Shimon? That in the two parshas, when it says the halachas that you should do here, like it said before, it says before it only said two, and here it's saying two. It's not that before it said four, now it's repeating the second time over here four. It's two before and two here, and you combine them together, so you only have one statata saying that has to be placed on all four. So you still don't know that it's a must, that it's ma'akiv, that it must be done this way. That's according to Rab Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein tzarich. You don't have to combine the karnais of before to the karnais here. Because the lashon of the pasuk that it says before, by the Par Kayim Mashiach, it says the term ba'oil mayid. It actually says it twice. This lashon of ba'oil mayid, it says both in the Par of Kayim Mashiach and by the Par Helam Davish as well. So what does this mean? Kala amma ba'oil mayid. That it means that whatever there is in the oil mayid, that's the mizbeach apnimi in the oil mayid, that it has to be the entire mizbeach. That has to be on all the corners of the mizbeach inside the oil mayid, not just two of the corners. So therefore, from the extra words of ba'oil mayid, this is what teaches me in both parshas that it has to be on all four corners. So there is a redundancy over here. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it wouldn't be necessary to have the additional drasha that the Gemara said before of Ken Yaseh. Okay, so now the Gemara says, if that's the case, for Rabbi Yehuda, Ken Yaseh, my Ovidle, so that those extra words of Ken Yaseh, what does he learn out from there? He learns from there something else. Look at the Tanya, as it said in a different Braise. Regarding the par that's brought in Yom Kippur, we don't have any source there. In Parshas Achrimais, when it speaks about the par of Yom Kippur, it doesn't say there the halacha of smicha, and it also doesn't say what do you do with the leftovers of the blood that has to be poured on the foundation of the mizbeach. So minayin, what's the source to say by the par of Kohen of the par of Yom Kippur that you have to have smicha and the shiyari adam should be poured on the mizbeach? So minayin, Talmud loymar ken yasa. These extra words of ken yasa and this pasuk that so too you should do is referring to the par of Yom Kippur. Again? But it's true. It's an extra pasuk, and that's what it goes on. Yeah. It says lapar, kasha lapar achatos ken yasa. So when it says lapar, so this ken yasa goes to which par? It goes to the par of Yom Kippurim. Okay. The par. Oh, so now the Gemara asks on this, how could you say that these extra words of Ken Yasa goes on the par of Yom Kippurim? Or the par Yom Kippurim loyla madnu? Do we not know already that the halachas that it says here in this parsha of par Helam Dovashal Tzibur, that it applies also to the par of Yom Kippurim? Ha'amret, but in the Braise before in Daf Lamed Tes, it actually said la par. When it says in the pasuk va'asa la par, what does that mean? Zeh Yom Kippurim. that extra word is actually referring to whatever it says here that you have to do also by the part of Yom Kippur, which the Gemara will soon explain what exactly that's coming to teach. But we already see from the word lapar that what it says here applies to Yom Kippur. So how are you saying now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that it's from Ken Yaseh that you learn out that what says here applies to the part of Yom Kippur? And says the Gemara, Itzrich. No, I still need the Ken Yaseh for the part of Yom Kippurim. Because otherwise I would think to say, when we're saying that what it says in this parsha should apply for the part of Yom Kippur, that's only regarding those steps of the Aveda that are integral for the kapara. But the details we're talking about now, which is the smicha and the shirayim of the blood, they are not ma'akev the kapara. So I would say, do not learn out from this parsha that they should apply to the part of Yom Kippur. Kamash Malan, therefore you need a pasuk of Ken Yaseh to teach me this as well. Now the Gemara asks according to Rab Shimon, V'Rab Shimon, hi, ba'oil mayed, my ovidle. Those extra words of ba'oil mayed, what does he learn from it? Since he doesn't darshan from that regarding the 4 times that it's placed on the corners of the Mizbeach, so what does Rab Shimon learn from the extra words of ba'oil mayed? Says the Gemara, ba'oil mayed mi ba'ile, what he learns from this is, she'im nivchasa tikra shel heichal. This halacha that you have to spray the blood inside the Beis HaMikdash, if the roof of the Beis HaMikdash was damaged, there's an opening, then when you spray the blood there, it doesn't take effect. You can't spray the blood. It has to be complete, full enclosure properly. That's what you learn from Ba'al Ma'id. Now, ve'idach, according to the other opinion, according to Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know this halacha? May asher. There's an extra word, asher, in the pasuk, because the pasuk says that Asher lefnei min adam yitna karnas mizbeach. Asher lefnei Hashem. Then it says again Asher ba'el mayid. So the extra Asher is saying this halacha that the oil mayid has to be complete. The roof has to be complete. Ve'idach, according to the other opinion, according to Rab Shimon, Asher loydarish. This extra Asher he doesn't darshan. It's the lashon of the pasuk the way it usually says it. It's not considered to be extra. Another pshat the Gemara here brings, going back to the original question that the Gemara asked before, why is it necessary to have an extra drasha to teach me the halacha of the 4 times that the blood has to be placed on the inside mizbeach? Why do I need an extra drasha of Ken Yaseh for that? And so the answer the Gemara said till here is that it was according to Rab Shimon. Now the Gemara says that it could be even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Abaya Omal Rabbi Yehuda Nami Yitztrich. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's necessary to have an extra drasha for that. Why? Because otherwise I would think to say Midi Dahave Asmiche V'Shiyare Yadam. That maybe I should say that the 4 times that you place the blood on the corners of the inside Mizbeach, compare that to the halacha of Smiche and Shiyare Yadam. The Afagav D'Chsivan Ukfilon. Regarding Smicha and Shiyari Adam, it's also written and repeated here in this parsha. But nevertheless, loy ma'akve. It's not ma'akiv. This is the drasha that the Gemara in the Braisa before said that you learn out from the word loy. I think that's what it was. 1 second. Was it the word loy? No, actually it was from what it says, v'chiper and v'nislach. That's how the Braisa before darshan. That from v'chiper v'nislach you learn out that the kapara and the slicha takes effect even without smicha and without pouring the leftovers of the blood on the mizbeach. So therefore, maybe I would think that matan arba nami loy, that just like I see that regarding the smicha and the shiyari adam, maybe regarding the 4 that are placed on the 4 corners of the inside mizbeach should also not be ma'akiv. And why is it more mustaber to say it regarding this? Because I see that 4 matanis on the outside mizbeach are not ma'akiv. So maybe the 4 matanis on the inside mizbeach should also not be ma'akiv. So therefore, like to sakiv, so kamash malon. Therefore, you have to have the extra drasha of Ken Yaseh to say that the bloods that have to be sprayed inside the Beis HaMikdash are always ma'akiv. Not only the ones that are sprayed towards the pereiches, the 7, but also the 4 on the 4 corners of the mizbeach are also ma'akiv. Now going back to the Braisa, it said lepar. That what do you learn out from lepar? Zeh par Yom Kippurim, as was just mentioned before. That from this you learn out that what it says here in this parsha, by par helam davishal tzibur, those halachas apply also to the par on Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara Lamai Hilchaseh, which details are we coming to learn out from the par helam davishal tzibur that it should apply to the par of Yom Kippur? Ila akev, if you're comparing to Yom Kippur to say that just like by the par helam dovishal tzibur, the bloods that you spray inside the Beis Hamikdash, it's a must. It's all ma'akev. That's similar. We say regarding Yom Kippur that the blood of the par of Yom Kippur has to be brought inside and it's sprayed. All whatever has to be done inside is all ma'akev pshita. But the point that by Yom Kippur it's ma'akev, that's obvious. Why? Because chukah ksivabei. The lashon in Parshas Achri Mais over there it says so whenever the rule, as I mentioned before, the rule is whenever it uses the term chukah, even without a repetition, it means that the details is ma'akiv. So you don't need to learn out from Parhel and Dovashul Tzibur at this point. So the Gemara says, well, not necessarily. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, Le'nitzchak el Rabbi Yehuda. The limud that we're learning out for Par Yom Kippur, that it's ma'akiv, is according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Why? Because the Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Ki ksiva chukah. There in Parshas Achri Mos by the Avodah of Yom Kippur, when the Torah uses the word chukah, regarding what is it saying that advarim hanasim bebigdei lavam bifnim. It's only referring to those unique avodas of Yom Kippur that the kohen has to do with his white garments when he enters into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Over there, she'im hikdem ma'aseh lechaveiro eleyasav eleklum. If you change the order of the way the Torah says the way things have to be done inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so then what you did is completely worthless. But whatever is done outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, even if it's done with the white garments, but it's outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, whether inside the Beis HaMikdash, but not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, or what's done by the Mizbeach HaChitzon outside, hiktim ma'aseh lechaveiroi. Even if you did one thing before the other, not in the order the way it says in the pasuk, masha asa asay. What's done is done. So the chukah means follow this order. But that the following the order, the term chukah is only regarding the Kodesh HaKadoshim, not what's outside there. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda says over there regarding the Seder. So therefore not the Gemara says. So amen. So I would think to say, if the order outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, even inside the Beis HaMikdash, if that is not a must, the order, if b'diavad, if it was done out of order, it takes effect. Hazah is not milay makvi. So all the sprayings of the blood, 7 times and 4 times, maybe that's also not all ma'akiv. That's what I would think. Kamash Malan, therefore, we do have to have this word lapar to say, just like by the par Hel and Dovishal Tzibur it's ma'akiv, by the par of Yom Kippur, it's also ma'akiv.
Only in Pnim, but not Bechut.
Yeah, exactly. Only inside the Beis HaMikdash, like by the Par Hel and Dovishal Tzibur. Mask if Rav Papa, but Rav Papa asks on this. Your answer is that this is following Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. But there's another brayse where Rabbi Yehuda speaks about the Avodah of Yom Kippur, and he bases on another pasuk besides the word chukah. Yes, so Rabbi Yehuda Taka says the word chukah, which is telling me the order is only going on what's in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. But then there's another pasuk which speaks about the Avodah that's done in Yom Kippur, where there we see Rabbi Yehuda says that it's all ma'akiv. What's this other pasuk? So Rav Papa asks, to me, matzah samra sachi. Could you say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, we need a special source that the Avodah of Yom Kippur inside the Beis HaMikdash is ma'akiv? But Vatanya, we learned in Abraise regarding the pasuk where it says V'chila mechaper es hakodesh, that the kohen completes. So this is also over there in Parshas Achri Mos. The kohen will complete to be mechaper in the kodesh. So what do you learn from this? Im kiper kila. If he sprayed the blood to the extent that it's enough for the kapara, so he's done. But v'im loy kiper, if he did not spray the blood that it should bring a kapara, loy kila, then he did not complete his avodah. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, this is how Rabbi Akiva darshans the pasuk, which means basically that according to Rabbi Akiva, this is an extra pasuk here. So Rabbi Akiva darshans that not necessarily do you have to have all the avodas that are completed. You have to have what's necessary for the kapara. If you did what's necessary for the kapara, you're done. But not, which means inside the Beis HaMikdash, when you spray the blood 4 times and 7 times, that's a must for the kapara. Once you did that, even if there's other things that were not done, it's good enough. But now Rabbi Yehuda is actually more machmer. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says to Rabbi Akiva, why are you darshan the pasuk this way? Why shouldn't we darshan the pasuk differently? Darshan it more in the order of the way it says it in the pasuk. How does the pasuk say it? It says it v'chila michaper es hakodesh. It says first the word v'chila, and then it says michaper, not the other way around. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says darshan like this: Im kila, only if he completed 100% everything, then kippur, then the kapara will take effect. V'im loy kila, if he did not complete everything, loy kippur, then the kapara will not take effect. So what does he mean? Rashi says what Rabbi Yehuda is adding is even something like the leftovers of the blood, the shirayim that have to be poured on the mizbeach, on the side of the mizbeach outside, that's also a completion. That has to be completed as well for the kapara. This is a specific chiddush over here regarding Yom Kippur. So we see how far Rabbi Yehuda is machmer regarding Yom Kippur. That you have to mamish complete even something like that, which usually is not ma'akev the kapara. So if so, we see here Rabbi Yehuda is clearly learning out from Yom Kilam Mechaper that you have to do every detail in Yom Kippur in order for the kapara to take effect. So how can you say, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that you need an extra word of lapar to tell me on Yom Kippur that it's ma'akev?
Even if you sprinkle the blood? I mean, you do the remnants?
Correct. Even the shirayim is ma'akev. Amar Rav Papa, so therefore Rav Papa says, that's what we're going to have to say, that what we're learning out of here, for the lapar, to say that we're comparing the part of Yom Kippur to the part of this parsha that was speaking about it, the part Helm Davashal Tzibur, it's coming to learn out certain details, additional details, that it doesn't say clearly by the part of Yom Kippur. What are those details? Ella, what it's needed for is the following thing. Ella le'es, dam, ubetfila. These words that it says here in the parsha of the part Helm Davashal Tzibur, when it says in the pasuk, the actual lashon of the pasuk is v'toval hakoyin esetzboi badom. So these details of how you spray the blood, that it's done with the finger, and it says here, the Gemara here will now explain that is something that you darshan from what it says esetzboi and then badom. V'toval esetzboi badom. This is very specific how exactly the blood has to be spread in the mizbech. Those details it doesn't say by the power of Yom Kippur. That's what we learn out to compare from here to the power of Yom Kippur. Now the Gemara explains, what do we learn out from this? As damu batfila. So as what we learn out from this is Amar Avacha Bar Yaakov le'nitzracha. That word es is coming to teach me as follows: lahachshir amin shebe'etzba. That if the kohen has to stick his finger into the blood and then place it on the mizbeach. What's if there's an amin on his etzba? What's this amin? If he has some yabeles, some wart, how do they translate it?
Blisters.
A blister. Okay, if he has a blister on his finger and he's sticking his finger into the blood, you might think that it's not his finger. It's a blister, so it's ma'akiv. It's not a good feeling. Yeah, it's something else. It's not the finger. So therefore, it says es etzboi. That extra word says that that's okay as well for the kohen to do the avodah with the finger. Now, when it says badom, this term of badom, what do we learn from this? That sheyehei badom shir tefillah meikara. That the vessel where you're receiving the blood that you're going to then place on the mizbeach, you have to receive in this vessel enough amount of blood from the beginning that should be used later to then place on the mizbeach. In other words, you can't have in it in l'chatchila two different vessels. One vessel that you have a little bit of blood, another one another little bit, and in each one there's not enough for what you would need for the placing on the mizbeach. Now you have to have one vessel that l'chatchila you're receiving in it enough blood for what has to be done here. That's what you learn. Yeah, correct. And he dips it inside, right? So this is learned from what it says ba dom. It doesn't say bit with a shva, but it says ba dom. In that blood that's already there from before, that's enough for everything. Then when it says v'toval, that he's dipping his finger inside, what does it mean dipping inside? V'loi misapik. That means that he has to actually dip his finger inside the blood, and not that he should just take from the walls, smear his finger on the walls of a little bit of blood that may be there. But it has to be enough blood that he's able to dip his finger inside. Now the Gemara explains here these last two drashes, why it's necessary to have both. And you have to say both points here, that badom, that you have to have enough blood l'chatchila, and the fact that you have to actually have blood that you could dip your finger inside, not just to smear your blood on the wall. So it's necessary to say both. If we would just say v'toval, you have to dip your finger inside, that even if you don't have that shear l'chatchila when you're receiving the blood in this vessel, it'll be fine. If now you have that blood there. Therefore, kasar rachmana badam. that you have to b'chatchila receive the full amount that's necessary for the blood that's going to be placed on the mizbeach. On the other hand, because of Rachmana Badam, if we would only say that, Havamina Filim Misapik, that even if you have that amount of blood there in the vessel, but you don't have to necessarily dip your finger inside, you could even just smear it on the walls and take a little bit from the blood. So because of Rachmana V'Toval. So the Torah says V'Toval that you have to dip your finger inside the blood itself. So it's these details, these halachas that the pasuk says, and where by the par Helen Dovashal Tzibah. In Parshas Achri Ma'is, by the par of Yom Kippur, doesn't say these details. That's what we're comparing. That's what we're learning out from the Lapar, to compare that these details apply to the par and Yom Kippur as well.
Rabbi, if you dip your finger in like a mikvah, dip it, your stomach, you're going to have enough blood. I mean, how are you not going to have enough blood?
Yeah, okay.
So the Tosfos says it's good.
No. It'll be, but that has, you have to dip it, and that blood has to be there from the Chatchila. Okay, now the Gemara focuses on another detail here, that it says Mizbach Ketayres. Mizbach, second Mizbach Ketayres, I think it is. Okay, so this is going back to the parsha of the Par Koyim Mashiach, I believe. So over there, when the pasuk says that you should place the blood on the inside Mizbeach, it refers to the inside Mizbeach as Mizbach Ketayres Hasamim. Why does it say that? We know it's the inside Mizbeach. It already says that it's the Mizbeach inside the El Mayid. If it's inside the El Mayid, so we know which Mizbeach it is. Why does it have to add these details that it's the Mizbeach where the Ketayres Hasamim is brought in it? Lomali. Why is the pasuk saying this? She'im, the answer is She'im loy nischanach ha-Mizbeach b'Ketayres Hasamim lehoyim Mazeh. It has to be the Mizbeach, the inside Mizbeach, but it was already used. It was already used, the Ketayres was brought in it already once. If the Mizbeach is brand new and the Ketayres was not brought in it yet, so then you can't spray the blood on this Mizbeach anymore, yet. Okay, so the Gemara here brings, Tanya Kvasei Rav Papa. We learned, like the point that Rav Papa said here, to explain what this limud of the par for Yom Kippur, what are we learning out for the par of Yom Kippur from what it says over here in this parsha? So we learned in the Brisa like what Rav Papa says. So the Brisa says as follows: V'oso kasher oso. This pasuk that we're speaking about, this extra pasuk. So matamud loymar lapor. When it says there, then in that pasuk that you should do for it lapor, rabbis par yom kippurim lochol ma she'omur be'inyan. That you should learn out from here for the par of Yom Kippur for all the details that it says in this subject. Here, this is the proof. This is like what Rav Papa said. What's this lashon? L'chol ma she'omur be'inyan. What it's saying is that take every single detail. In other words, these little details that we mentioned before, the es, v'badam, v'toval, exactly how the finger has to be dipped into the blood. Those details say here, and it doesn't say by the par Yom Kippurim. Learn all those details from here to compare that it's the same, like by par Lam Davashal Tzibur, it's the same by the par of Yom Kippur. That's Divrei Rabbi. This is Rabbi's opinion, like what Rav Papa said. Now the Gemara goes on to bring another opinion which argues on this. Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel says, I don't need this limud, Kavachaymer, because I can learn it out with a Kavachaymer that I should compare the par of Yom Kippur to the par Helen Davashal Tzibur here. What's the Kavachaymer? If when it comes to a situation where there are two karbanis that are not the same, meaning they're not the same kind of animal. Here we're talking about a par and a par. The bull that's brought for Helam Davashal Tzibur and the par for Yom Kippur. But what Rabbi Shmuel is saying is we find another carbon that's different. As Gemara will soon explain which carbon this is. A case where one is a goat and one is the bull. But nevertheless, Hishva Maisim La Maisim, the Torah says that the actions of how this chatos is brought, they're both exactly the same. If so, Makim Shehishva carbon la carbon over here, when you have two that are the same carbon, they're both apart. So definitely the details about how this chatas and this chatas is brought is for sure it's understood that it should be the same, even without having the drasha. It's understood that the details of how the blood is placed on the mizbeach is the same. So when it says here in this pasuk the word lapar, what is it coming to teach? Ze par helam davashal tzibor. The lapar refers to the par helam davashal tzibor, which the Gemara is going to explain later what it means by that, because this pasuk here says by the par helam davashal tzibor. What does it mean? Ze par helam davashal tzibor. Okay, and lapar it says actually a second time in the pasuk lapar. It says va'asal lapar kasha asal lefar achatos. Ze par kai Mashiach. That refers to the par kai Mashiach. Okay, that's Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. But from what Rabbi said, we see the point that Rav Papa said before. Okay, Now, though, the Gemara focuses on understanding what was this Kal V'chomer that Rabbi Shmuel said. The beginning of his Kal V'chomer was that we find in another place two karbanis chatos that are not the same. And still we see that the details of their Avodah is the same. So what is that? So Rabbi Shmuel said, if in a place where I see two that are not the same carbon and nevertheless their Avodah is the same. So which two is he speaking about that are not the same carbon and nevertheless their Avodah is the same? If you're going to say what it's referring to is Par Yom Kippurim, Usi'ir Yom Kippurim, there's the bull on Yom Kippur, and then there's the goat on Yom Kippur. So they're different carbonis. They're not the same in the what the animal is, but nevertheless their Avodah is the same. The Avodah is done. Both of them are brought inside the Beis Hamikdash, and I believe both of them are brought inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the blood. So the Avodah is the same, even though they're not the same animals. That's the beginning of his Kal V'chomer. Says the Gemara, how are you making a Kal V'chomer from there to say that for sure by the Par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur and the part of Yom Kippur they should be compared because they're the same part? But I can refute this Kal V'chomer. Ma'alahanoch, over there by the case of the part and the soil of Yom Kippur, that here the Gemara says it beferish, nichnas damam lifnai v'lifnim. They are both the same, that they're special, they're both in Yom Kippur, and both of them, the blood has to be brought into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So therefore they're the same in all the details as well. But over here though, by the par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur and the par of Yom Kippur, this is Yom Kippur, and this is a par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur that's not brought into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So who says we should compare them? So Ella, therefore the Gemara says, what is the two that Rabbi Shmuel said that we compare, even though they're not the same carbon, they're not the same animal? Par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur v'Seirei Avodas Kechavim. When the tzibur has to bring this par, when the Bezdin Paskin and the tzibur has to bring this bull, and then there's the goat that has to be brought for someone that serves Avodah Zarah. And those two also have the same halachis in how the blood is spread in the Mizbeach, even though it's two different kinds of animals. That was the beginning of the Kal V'chomer of Rabbi Shmuel. But again, the Gemara says you can't learn out from there to make a Kal V'chomer to the part of Par Elam Dover, to the part of Yom Kippur. Because Ma'alahanoch shekem achaprin alavedas mitzvah yudua. Over there, those are two karbonis. They're different. They're taka different animals, but there's a comparison between them because they're both coming to be mechaper on a specific aveda that was done. So Mashenkin over here, we're talking about the part of Yom Kippur. The part of Yom Kippur, what is it for? It's not coming to be mechaper on a specific aveda. It's coming to be mechaper on the Tumas Mikdash v'Kadoshov for the Bnei Aaron HaKohanim, for the Kohanim. But not for a specific aveda that was done, but for any time the Kohanim were in the Beis Hamikdash when they were Tameh. So how can you compare? Says the Gemara, Ella, what the Rabbi Shmuel was saying in his Kal V'chomer is, Par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur, V'Soir Shel Yom HaKippurim. So these two, the part of the hell and then the goat of Yom Kippur, and those are the two that Rabbi Shmuel is comparing them. And this is what he was saying. If I see in a place where these two are not the same, because the high par, here we're talking about the bull of Par Elam Dover Shel Tzibur, and the high soil, and by Yom Kippur this is a goat. But hushvu maisim lemaisim lemai dekasabahu. But then regarding the details that it does say in the Torah, I see that those details that it says in the Torah by both of them are the same. Which means even though they're not exactly the same, they are by the sword of Yom Kippur, the blood is brought into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, not by the Par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur. But nevertheless, by the details that it does say, but they are the same. Over there, the avodah is done by them is the same. So if so, Makim shehoshve carbon lekarbon. When I see two, that the carbon is the same. Two, the high par, the Par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur, and the part of Yom Kippur, they're both a bull, and then so for definitely I should say shehoshvu maisim lemaisim, that the details that are here are the same over here, and I should there's no necessity to have a special drasha to compare them. Right, so over here, all the details of how it's sprayed on the paroiches and the corners of the base, on the inside mizbeach, it for sure should be compared to each other. Okay, va'asalei par Yom Kippurim. So therefore, what do you learn out from from here for the par of Yom Kippur? Le'es badam utfila. These details that we mentioned before, that we learn out from those words of es badam and bitfila. We learn out mipar koyem Mashiach, that we learn out from the Par Kayim Mashiach all these details that have to be done, right? Because where does it actually say all these this lashon? This lashon in the pasuk of that the Gemara darshan before, all these details of Es, Badam, and Vetoval. It doesn't say it by the Par Helm Dovashal Tzibur. It says it by the Par Kayim Mashiach. And then we compare from the Par Kayim Mashiach that the same applies also by the Par Helm Dovashal Tzibur. Because by the Par Helm Dovashal Tzibur it says Va'asa, you should do here, Kasher also, like it says by the Par Kayim Mashiach. And therefore then I learn out and say that the same applies also to the Par of Yom Kippur. Okay, but now the Gemara brings a second thing that I learn out from this. Another Kavachaimer. V'asilei sa'ir yom kippurim misi'irei avodas kechavim mikavachaimer. And then I also learn out to compare the sa'ir of Yom Kippur from the sa'ir of avodas kechavim. Why? Because the sa'ir of avodas kechavim, the Gemara brought before, the Braisa said before, is also learned out from this pasuk. In this pasuk, when it says, one of the words, I don't remember which word it was, I think it was the word hachatos. When it says over here in the pasuk of Par Helam Dovar, it says the word hachatos, that refers to the side of Avodas Kechavim. That all the details that it says in this parsha of Par Helam Dovar Shel Tzibur also applies to the side of Avodas Kechavim. So if it applies to the side of Avodas Kechavim, so then I learn out the side of Yom Kippur from the side of Avodas Kechavim as well, with the same Kavachayim that Rav Papa said, because these are both goats. Since they're both Seirim, so I could learn out and say that just like I see that there are two karbanis that are similar, even though they're not the same animal, so too I learn out for the side of Yom Kippur, from the side of Avodas Kechavim, that all these details apply. Okay, so now the thing though is, how are we learning this out? We're learning out the side of Yom Kippur from where? From the side of Avodah Zarah. Now, this by the side of Avodah Zarah, these details of Es, Badam, V'toval, it doesn't say it by the side of Avodah Zarah. Where does it say it? It says it by the Par Kain of Mashiach. But because in the same pasuk there's a hekish, in this pasuk it says that I should compare to the Par Kain Mashiach, and in that very same pasuk it also says the term Chatas, which I learned to the side of Avodah Zarah. So I know from a hekish that these details apply to the side of Avodah Zarah. After I have that hekish, now I can make a kavachaymer that whatever applies by the side of Avodah Zarah also applies to the side of Yom Kippur. That's the kavachaymer the Gemara is saying now. So let's just finish the Indian here. So the Gemara asks on this, how can we do this? Could you say such a kind of a limud, as we'll see later here in Perek Ezel Mekayim, there's limitations regarding these limudim, something that the whole source from it is just from a hekesh, you can't then learn from it to another place with the kavachaymer. So over here, the whole halacha that these details apply to the side of Avodah Zarah, you're only learning with a hekesh from Par Kayim Mashiach. And then afterwards, you're making additionally a kavachaymer from the side of Avodah Zarah to the side of Yom Kippur. How could you do that? So the Gemara answers, this concept is a machlekes. Kesav Tana, the Beis Rabbi Shmuel, the Tana from Rabbi Shmuel, he holds it, yes, that you could learn it with a kavachaymer, even after the whole source is a hekesh. And that's what this added kavachaymer the Gemara said here is.